If you've ever pulled up to an EV charger and wondered, why is this one costing me £45 but the last one only cost me 20? You're not alone. Because right now in the UK, drivers are paying nearly double the price for charging their car just because of the charger that they have picked. They don't realise that until they've already plugged in and paid the price. So today, I'm going to tell you why that happened. Who are these charging operators? How much do they cost? How they work? And how much it really costs to charge from 10 to 80% at all of them. Now the reality is most EV drivers charge at home. It's reliable, it's cheap, and there's no messing around. It's just easy to do. But that's not the whole story. Now some people can't charge at home. They live in a flat. They don't have a driveway, for an example. But even if you can charge at home, as soon as you go on a longer trip and pushing the range of your EV to the max, you're going to find yourself having to rely on that UK rapid charger network. We all have to use them. And that is where things start to get a bit confusing. So before we start comparing the networks, we need a fair way to measure the difference. So we're going to take your standard EV, like my Tesla Model 3. Most EVs have a battery size of around about 75 kilowatts, just like my car. So when taking the 10 to 80% capacity, we're getting 52 kilowatts. So for each of the price, we're going to times it by that 52 kilowatts to give you the real 10 to 80% charge. Why 10 to 80%? Because in that range of your battery, your car will charge the fastest. There's no point charging all the way up to 100. It's just going to slow you down because of the battery curve. The more full a battery is, the slower it's going to charge. The same as filling a glass. When you start pouring water into your glass, you're quite quick, but as soon as you start getting up to the top edge, you slow down to make sure it doesn't overfill. Now, it's important to mention that public charging is not the same as petrol. You're not going to find kind of little price differences of a penny. It's quite big and substantial that you will see. That's just down to each of the different operators. Every operator has different tariffs that they buy the electricity from. They're installing different hardware. Location and rent charges are different as well. And of course, it's what are they trying to do? Are they using all that money to expand, or are they trying to maximize their profits? This is the difference that you will see. The block difference for each of these sites can be quite substantial. So let's start with one that we all know, Tesla Superchargers. Now Tesla, they're very unique in this, that they're one of the only brands who build the cars and also have their own dedicated charging network to go with them. They design and install this whole network to work perfectly with their cars, meaning they're so reliable and easy to use for us Tesla owners. You'll usually find these superchargers just off motorways on service stations or some major A roads as well, and some retail parks have started popping up at. They're perfectly designed and placed for places you're going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes at anyway, so why not plug your car in and get some range? There are roughly around 2,000 Tesla Superchargers here in the UK today, and not long ago they were limited to Tesla owners only. So if you drove anything else, sadly, you're going to have to use a different network. But today, that's completely changed. With now most sites are now open to all EVs, which is great. That's what we want to see. And the best way to know if it's open or not, get the Tesla app and you can see on the Charge Your Other EV section, you can see the list of all the ones that you can use your car at. Now, actually using the chargers, if you drive a Tesla, just plug in and it'll charge automatically. And if you're not a Tesla, simple of either using the app, selecting the store you're at and start charging, or at the newer V4 units, which are the big white ones, they've got a contactless terminal built in on the screen, so just tap your card, easy. When it comes down to pricing, it really depends on two things, the time of day and whether you do drive a Tesla or you drive another car. For Tesla drivers, peak times, usually around about 8 AM till 8 PM, for example, we're looking at 40p a kilowatt hour, and off-peak, we're looking all the way down to 22 pence a kilowatt hour. An incredible low price when you think about it. That's even cheaper than some people's home charging if you're not on a tariff. For non-Tesla drivers, a little bit more expensive, we're looking at 56p a kilowatt hour peak and down to 30p for the off-peak times. So not too bad. But if you want to get that cheaper prices that us Tesla drivers pay, you can pay a membership, $9.99 a month, and that unlocks those lower prices to you. So if you end up using them quite a lot, it might be worth getting the subscription. So for our 10 to 80% charging price, for peak time in a Tesla, you're looking at around about £21. But if it's off-peak, as little as £11 to £12. Now, that is some cheap charging. So with that and the combination of the reliability and easy to use, Tesla Superchargers are considered the benchmark in this country for what all chargers should be. Now, other end of the spectrum, InstaVolt. Now, you've probably seen them around in the UK. They focus their chargers at fast food places, coffee places. So in a McDonald's car park or a Costa, you probably see one or two of these chargers installed. Again, with that idea is where people are naturally going to stop. So you may as well charge. You're not going out of the way to get to these chargers. They're just there for you. And that's what we like. But pricing for InstaVolt is completely different. 89p a kilowatt hour from them. Now the pricing is completely different. 89p a kilowatt hour for InstaVolt if you just turn up and use your contactless card. But if you use either their app or RFID cards that InstaVolt offer, you can drop that price down if you charge at off-peak times, which is between 8 PM and 7 AM, down to 60p. A little bit better, but still a lot more than Tesla, for example. This means that 10 to 80% charge during the day is going to cost you £46. But if you do it overnight, in the off-peak times, you're looking at around £31. So you can already see there's a big difference already there from these two operators. So you've got to be careful of who you choose and where you charge. Osprey Charging is an independent UK operator focused on your everyday destinations, shops, retail parks, and just your normal public car parks for when you're going into town to do some shopping. And they operate around 1,400 chargers around the UK at the moment, so it's definitely on the bigger size. Pricing 87p a kilowatt hour for using contactless, or 82 pence for using the app. Now you'll see this a lot throughout this video, where most operators have an app, and using that app and signing up for free gets you a tiny little discount, looking around about 2 to 7p a kilowatt hour less. So it's probably worth it, as long as you don't mind signing all your details to these companies, but you get a little bit of cheaper charging. Now for Osprey, that gives our 10 to 80% charge at around about 45 for the higher rate, or £43 for the lower rate. Be.EV, harder one to say. They're a newer operator that has been focusing a lot on the north of the UK, but only recently have expanded by taking over Charging. So you're going to see a lot of their chargers down south now, which is great. They're a newer operator and they're focused on offering a real robust network for people who don't have home charging. Like I said, the people who don't have driveways. And they're often seen working with local councils to get more chargers installed in towns, not just out on motorways, but in places where people live. Which again, that is what we need to see. They're pricing 79p a kilowatt hour for when using contactless, just rocking up and tapping your card. But again, using their app at daytime, that drops the price down to 69p a kilowatt hour between 7 AM, 7 PM. And for overnight, so 7 PM to 7 AM, all the way down to 39p a kilowatt hour. That again is some cheap charging. So if you can't charge at home, but there's one of these nearby, get the app and charge at the later times, maybe after work or in the evening, and save yourself a little bit of money. Now, not just the app, they do have subscriptions to lower the prices down as well. They have one for £4.99 a month that will drop it down to 49p a kilowatt hour. Or for £9.99, you can drop it down to 39p a kilowatt hour. That's at all times of the day. So that's bringing our 10 to 80% to £41, or all the way down to £20 on the lower end. So not a bad price to charge up at if you have one of these near you. Now, a big one that you've probably seen when visiting motorway service stations, and that is GRIDSERVE. Now, they're an energy company, and one of the great things is the designing forecourt, big dedicated places like petrol stations where you'll go and charge, and they have amenities. They have the toilets and shops to go to, and a place to relax, a nice lounge while your car charges. Because that's one of the biggest issues that people have with electric cars, is the time it's taking to charge. But if you've got a nice place to chill, have a drink, and just relax from probably 300 miles of driving, you'll need that anyway. It's kind of great to see. But mostly you're going to find these sites at motorway service stations, and they've got speeds going all the way up now to 400 kilowatts, some of the fastest chargers in the country that GRIDSERVE operate. Now the pricing sadly is on the higher end, 89p a kilowatt hour if you're using contactless card, or use the app and get it down to 82p. Still very expensive. But at some sites, like when I visited Todd Hills, because Tesla also operate an open to all site, they've got to compete, because why would you go to them paying 89p a kilowatt hour when literally on the other side of the row is Tesla charging you 50p or 40p, for an example. So at some of these sites, they charge 49p, and depending on the time of day, can be cheaper than Tesla. So it's important to check that, because you might see GRIDSERVE and go, expensive, but it might not be as more expensive as you thought. They do have another way to get the price down. They do have a subscription. £7.99 gets you a 25% discount on your charging. So when we're looking at that 10 to 80% charge again, you get looking on the higher end of £46 or all the way down to £25 depending on the site and whether you have a membership or not. So GRIDSERVE can look really expensive on the face of it, but if you know where it is and the smart ways to do it, you can get that price down all the way down to Tesla price. It's not just the new companies starting up operating chargers. You've got fuel companies who have noticed that they now need to start transitioning towards a sustainable future, because petrol stations are going to go away in the future. So they still need to make some money. They don't want to just go out of business. The first one of them, BP, British Petroleum, massive company, and they have their own electric charging company, BP Pulse, that you've probably seen a few out and about. A lot of them are located in their petrol forecourts, but they have got some dedicated sites too. Quite simple for them. Again, 89p a kilowatt hour for contactless, or subscription. It's £7.85 a month, and that brings the price down to 69p a kilowatt hour. So still on the higher end, but if there's one near you and you use it quite a lot, you may as well pay that subscription and get the price a little bit cheaper, bringing the 10 to 80% charge down to about £36. Not the best we've seen, but definitely not the worst. Another fuel company, Shell. They operate Shell Recharge. Again, converting petrol forecourts into these new electric charging hubs. So you can find dedicated ones now, but a lot of them are just attached to their petrol stations anyway. Again though, 89 pence a kilowatt hour contactless. You can see a pattern here. There's a very expensive charges from these legacy fuel companies. Conspiracy wise, maybe they don't want people to buy these electric cars, so let's jack the prices up. But that's not 100%. If you use their free app, it drops it down to 79p a kilowatt hour. Or with their £9.99 a month subscription, it drops it down to 55p. Bringing the 10 to 80% charge anywhere from £46 down to £29. So if you go into a Shell Recharge because it's the closest one to you or the only one around, get that app. Don't pay that 89 pence a kilowatt hour. At least drop it down. And if you visit a few times, maybe look at the membership. So even when you're using one of the most expensive chargers in this video at 89 pence a kilowatt, costing you around about £46 for your 10 to 80%. To put that into perspective, it's still cheaper than having a diesel or a petrol car where you're topping up £80–90. If you've got an efficient electric car, even at these high prices, the pence per mile is still cheaper than running that petrol or diesel car. And that's without going into the lack of maintenance savings, for example. So definitely electric cars are the way. even though the chargers look expensive on the face value. Another big one, IONITY. Now, they're a European network that are in the UK, so you're going to see a lot of them throughout Europe. They're backed by a lot of major car manufacturers and they're focused on motorway travels, so you're going to see them really only at motorway service stations, but they're the places you stop for a little rest, so they're perfectly placed. The price for them, 81p a kilowatt hour for contactless, just rocking up. So a bit cheaper than GRIDSERVE, but still on the high end of charging. But use the app, get it down to 77p a kilowatt hour, a little bit better. But if you find yourself using IONITY quite a lot, maybe you travel on the motorway a lot for work, then you've got subscriptions, and you've got 2 subscriptions. First one, IONITY Motion, $5.49 a month. Not too bad, bringing that price down to 58p. Or you can use IONITY Power, £10.50 a month, but that brings that price all the way down to 46 pence a kilowatt hour. So not too bad. So prices range 10 to 8%. At the high end, you're looking at £42. Or all the way on the lower end, £24. So you can, if you know these things, get these chargers for a lot cheaper if you're using them frequently. Because if you're not, if you only use a one-off time, you've got to factor that you're paying an additional £10, £5 for that one charge. So subscriptions really mean a lot if you're regularly using these chargers only a few times a month at the end of the day. 2 or 3 charges a month, it makes sense. Now Fastned is a Dutch company that has chargers here in the UK as well, and are known for their distinctive yellow canopies that look like the logo. I've visited a few lovely sites. Price though, 79p a kilowatt hour. Or use the app, you get a 10% saving on that. So again, sign up for a little bit of money off. They do have a membership at £9.98 a month, and that reduces the price per kilowatt down to 55p, bringing your 10 to 80% charge to around about £29 a month. It is on the higher end, a little bit cheaper, but they do have a membership to save a little bit. There's not as many around the UK, but if you do see one, it is cheaper for contactless than GRIDSERVE and Shell, for example. So it might be worth looking and using them. Another fuel operator here, Apple Green Electric. Apple Green, which is owned by the service station Welcome Break, who operate petrol forecourts. They have their own charging operator now as well to keep up with that demand and get a little bit into those profits. Again, you'll see most of them at service stations at Welcome Break services. 83p a kilowatt hour if you're just rocking up contactless. Get the app, that brings it down to 78 pence a kilowatt hour. 10 to 8% charge for them, anywhere from £43 down to 41. Not much difference. They haven't got a subscription or anything like that. So they are on the higher end of chargers, but they are, again, the fast, nearly 400 kilowatt chargers at a lot of these sites. So if you need a quick splash and dash, then it might be worth paying a little bit of money for the convenience. And that's where a lot of it comes down to, is convenience. The faster the chargers, the more they're going to charge you because of that convenience. MFG EV Power, another fuel company from Motor Fuel Group. They are one of the largest UK fuel forecourt operators that have electric chargers. Pricing for them sits between 69p and 79p, just depending on the site and the location of it. It's an odd one, but that's how they do it, meaning 10 to 80% charge for them, anywhere from £36 to £41. So middle of the road for them. No subscriptions, no app discounts, just basic price. And the last operator we're going to talk about, EV on the Move. Now again, it's owned by a petrol company, and you'll see a lot of them on their petrol forecourts, but a lot of them are on their own little areas. They're a growing company. You're going to find anywhere from 2 to 8 stalls, but a lot of them are 4, and a lot of them use the Tesla Supercharger V4 units, so they have got that reliability that Tesla offer. The only thing they've not got is the price. Now they range from around about 65p all the way up to 75p, again depending on the site. It seems that new sites have a cheaper price to start with, and then they'll slowly raise it up. So if the new one's just opened by you, you might be able to get it down to 65p. Now no app, no subscriptions, just a basic contactless payment charge at all of them. That's bringing your 10 to 80% charge from anywhere between £34 to £39, depending on the price you're paying. Again, middle of the road, not too bad, but could be better. So when you look at everything together, charging here in the UK, it seems to fall into 3 different categories. With memberships on off-peak prices, some of these operators are bringing that rapid charging price down to £20 to £25 for your 10 to 80% charge. You've then got your kind of middle of the road prices where they're not really getting memberships, but the prices are set reasonable compared to the others. You're talking around about £30 to £40 for your 10 to 80% charge. And at the other end, you've got those kind of premium motorway services like GRIDSERVE and Apple Green Electric, charging you quite a lot more of your 10 to 80% charge, costing anywhere from £43, £46 for the exact same amount of electricity as the other ones. Because that's it, you're not paying for the electricity, you're paying for the speed, the convenience, and the location of the chargers. Just like how petrol stations on motorway services are priced higher than ones in towns. You're paying for convenience, and they know that. This is why planning is really important. You need to look at apps like ZapMap or a better route planner and see the charges, because a little 5-minute diversion could save you like £10, £20 on that charge. Yeah, it might just be a bit out of the way, but when you're doing that a few times on a longer journey, it really starts to add up at hundreds of pounds on a journey, just by smartly looking at what chargers are available and the price of them. There isn't really one best network here in the UK. If you charge at home, then at the end of the day, public charging is about the ease and the reliability on your longer trip. But if you have to rely on those public chargers because you can't charge at home, then it is really down to the price to make it as cheap as possible. And if you drive regularly on motorways, long journeys for work, then these memberships can really help bring that cost down from spending thousands a month down to a couple of hundred. It really makes a difference. So look at these memberships that you can get. It might work out for you. But it's important to say that these public UK networks aren't really designed to replace home charging. They're there for the convenience for when you need to go that little more than your car can actually take you. Home charging, at the moment, not everyone can do it, but there are ways and schemes to allow that. Like I've mentioned before in other videos, you've got cable gullies or cables that kind of hang over on a post to allow people to charge at home. You can have workplace charging installed that usually can be even free for a lot of people or cheap. They're the ways to get people into electric cars, and your rapid chargers are just there to get you that little bit further, the convenience of them. And once you understand which network suits how you drive, then EV charging becomes very predictable, very easy, and there's no hidden surprises. If you want to keep things simple, Tesla chargers are overall the cheapest ones you can go to. But IONITY becomes very competitive with their 2 different membership options. InstaVolt has the location advantage at your fast food and coffee places. So if you're there, quick charge, there you go. And GRIDSERVE, perfect for your motorway stops. They're there in mass numbers with fast speeds, easy to use. And Be.EV is becoming an everyday option for people who can't charge at home at the moment, with quite competitive prices and great locations in towns and in cities, not away on the motorways. And in a future video, we'll discuss more about these tariffs and hidden ways to make your charging even cheaper that the operators don't really want you to know about but are there. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Don't forget, like and subscribe for future videos. And if you want to see how these prices continue and change, let me know. Maybe we'll do a few more of these and update throughout the year and see where prices is going up or they're coming back down. Who knows? Thanks very much for watching this one, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.